Today's matchup, Afreeca Freecs, MVP. Jinne Greenwings, Rocks Tigers. Beginning of the end. 2018 League of Legends Champions Korea Spring Split.
Good evening, OGen Legion. Welcome back to another day of LCK Spring Split. I'm Achilles. That's Papa Smithy. Diving back into the action here today after a crazy day of matches just yesterday. KT Kingzone match going on. Kingzone coming out on top of that one. But now we have a little bit more of a one-sided match. It's going to be second place. Currently Afreeca Freecs after KT with their loss yesterday. Going up against MVP in 10th place, bottoming out even below SK Telecom.
Yeah, some of these statements you're saying today sound crazy. You need the context of the games we've already seen, but Afreeca Freecs, they're on an 8-game winning streak. Not as quite as long as Kingzone Dragon X's 12-game winning streak, but equally impressive, I would say. They've looked very clean, losing Marin, putting in Kiin. They haven't skipped a beat, so I'm really excited to see if Afreeca Freecs can keep this up. 2-0 over MVP seems achievable, but this is the one time where MVP are coming off a win this season, so we have to give them a modicum of respect. If they can actually win Game 1 here against Afreeca Freecs, this season that's already had so much upheaval. We started with KSV as our big favorites. Now it's Kingzone. Maybe it's got some more twists and turns coming today.
And I think Afreeca losing to MVP, at least in Game 1, would probably be one of the most Afreeca things that they could possibly do based on their usual run of play that we've seen from them for the last couple seasons here, is they were always the team to go to 3 games, no matter what. It was like getting a 2-0 was just an impossible task for them. It was always those 3-game sets that cost them the points, why they couldn't really climb the standings.
But does that apply
and it would
anymore?
be very fitting for them to have that happen
Does
again.
it apply anymore?
It doesn't
SKT
seem it.
always wins, right? And Afreeca Freecs always win Game 1, then lose Game 2. Neither of those storylines hold true in just the crazy LCK 2018 season we've had so far. Confirming second place for Afreeca Freecs with a win here. Whether it is a 2-1 or a 2-0, they will be outright second. A 2-0 would keep them safe from KSV, who face SK Telecom T1 in a mouth-watering game to round out the first week here, just before we head into the 1-week break we have next week for Lunar New Year. So for now, at least, we're going to have a little bit of League of Legends to give you. So 3 more match days and unfortunately a 1-week break. No Korean League of Legends for a week. I know I'll be sad, but it'll be coming back before too long.
Yeah, that's going to be a bit feels bad, but for now, we can just go ahead and be entertained by the games that we have here today. And this first series certainly could be entertaining, especially if MVP want to try anything wacky. And I think that they might have to, because right now they are in a hole. And they need to get themselves out of that hole before they find themselves back into the relegation matches yet again. So here we go. Over on the blue side, starting off, it's going to be Afreeca Freecs, the roster that you have come to expect out of the squad. And, you know, it's a bit odd. This is the team that has the most substitutes here in the league, but they have found the formula with these players here. We did get to see a little bit of aiming at the AD spot, but Kramer coming back in the starting position. They know that this is what they need to run in order to get those 2-0 victories, so they're bringing it back out today.
Yeah, I just see no reason to mess with what has been a great formula. TusiN, the man to the left here, actually leads overall MVP as a support,
500
something
points.
that has never happened. Still a long season, but it'd be awesome to see a support win the season, regular season MVP here. I'm loving some of these cheerfuls, and they're including both players.
Which is
adorable. Kiin here on the gangplank. I think both of them will be playing the gangplank. Everyone loves GP in this meta, farming up a storm, bank planking, even on patch 8.2. But their opponents today, MVP. You know, we've had our snide comments. We've talked about their struggles. Let's talk about their victories. They come off a win against SK Telecom T1, where they were definitely the better team over the course of 3 games.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, just saw SKT, but changed things up a little bit. We saw Blossom in the jungle. Seemed to maybe help a little bit, but
let's talk about this team. SKT's for another day. We still have to celebrate these guys.
You were cutting me off in the middle of my point.
On purpose.
All right, I see what you're doing here. But no, yes, MVP coming off of that win. But can they carry that momentum forward? How long did that momentum last for these guys?
Is it momentum if it's one series among 5 perfect defeats?
It's certainly a shift in the momentum because they were going down. Now they at least are going flat.
There's a disturbance in the force, but are we going to say there's momentum yet? You can look at this previously on for MVP and see that if this was some sort of sitcom, there wasn't going to be much to laugh about before the most recent episodes. But just like some of those sitcoms, sometimes it takes 6 episodes to really work out the kinks. So MVP, we've been focused on the SKT side of the narrative. They did have impressive performances across the board, beyond stepping up in the jungle. ADD's Gangplank working out. But Kramer has been impressive just in and of himself. 10.2 KDA. It looks like the bat signal. That means that Batman is Kramer.
I guess so. That makes sense. He needs a mask, though. He's not really hiding it too well. But we'll be going up against MaHa, whose KDA is not as good, to say the least.
Well, I mean, they don't really have any good KDAs on their team, unfortunately.
The entire KDA for the squad's a 1.9, so things aren't looking very good for them. But we did see Pilot out in the last match, but it's going to be MaHa starting yet again here.
And history, surprisingly, actually has been pretty kind to MVP. Spring was when they were still one of our stronger teams, pretty even then, and Afreeca only getting their nose ahead in the second part of the year. The regional qualifier between these two teams was madness. Lulu jungle and all sorts of hijinks happening in that one. Able to get over the line where Afreeca Freecs 3-2. That was the last time they've played. It's fun to see them against each other. And here's Kramer, only player over 10 KDA in the LCK right now, is Kramer, coming through with solid numbers and also a champion pool that shows the who's who. What's strong in League of Legends. Ezreal, you would imagine, would start to fall away, but still been heavily prized here on patch 8.2.
Yeah, even with the nerfs coming through to the Kleptomancy, still have been seeing a lot of that Ezreal play coming out. Prey picking it up just yesterday, and I think if Kramer has it available, he will be willing to take that. And then other key position is going to be the supports, mostly because TusiN's a part of this graph. So TusiN has been dominating as a support here. KDA, not so great, but at the same time, he's been racking up those MVP wins, and that's really what's telling the story here for this guy and how impactful he's been in their series.
He's been really creative as well. Another one of these players who, with Unsealed Spellbook, loves to pick up that rune, teleport to mid lane. He'll glacial fish it to people to death if he can. Champion pool for both these players, predictably when it comes to Max, but also with TusiN. Very wide. They're playing a lot of different champions in support. Something like Orange support, even on patch 8.2, could be contested. I imagine Afreeca will be pretty on top here, and 87% of people say that they will take down the win against MVP.
Well, it's probably a pretty safe bet here. Let it go ahead and back the Afreeca Freecs. But again, if they lose this series or even drop a game, it is the most Afreeca thing historically that they could possibly do. So it wouldn't be that shocking at the same time. But I mean, a lot of confidence here for Afreeca. You would expect coming into this matchup. MVP is kind of hoping for a miracle in order to get some wins and maybe not end up in relegation. But it not only depends on them doing well, but other teams doing extremely poorly for the next half of the split. So just want to get as confident as they can before potential relegations. As we go ahead and enter into the draft. Afreeca, again, over onto that blue side. First span of the game is going to be Kha'Zix.
Great performance by Beyond on the Kha'Zix. Aggressive invading against SKT-T1. So blue side Kha'Zix ban targeted at Beyond. And your introduction to patch 8.2 here. Achilles, it's much of the same. Relic Shield still in the top lane for the Gangplank. In the bot lane, thankfully, only one maximum, so we're feeling good about that.
I have noticed that it's pretty much the same outside of Relic Shields not being there. You guys had a pretty long game yesterday.
But we're waiting, right? We feel like the Jinx is close. The hovers have been real. The lock-ins not so much. Kramer played the Jinx way out of meta last year and on CJ in 2016, so an outside chance. If Galio rolls in, I think Jinx as a hyper carry is very possible. And with Jinx comes that Yeti in the jungle. So Spirit's Nunu. I'm going to keep saying it out loud. I said it for the Riven. I said it for the Nasus. I'm going to keep saying Nunu till we see that damn Nunu. Could be sooner than we might imagine.
Well, for now, no Nidalee for Beyond in the jungle, and that's going to be the final ban of the first round as Zoe gets taken off the board.
Do we just insta-lock the Galio here? It'll be Galio versus Azir most likely, and Ian has looked pretty competitive on Azir in the last series at least against SKT-T1, so will Galio priority fall down a bit? I like when it's not just going to become an insta-lock because we've seen evolving strategies against Galio. Korean teams have gotten better and better against playing against the Galio, and then Camille will be locked in, and predictably ADD will at least hover his waifu, the Scion.
Yeah, looking at the Scion, we'll see if he wants to lock that in. It's one hell of a waifu, and a very big pillow if you want to have that one. Full size body pillow going on.
As you lay on it, it's like, coward!
It's a 1-to-1. You get out of bed in the morning, coward!
Oh, he still might lock it in, guys. Let's be real. It's ADD. And the Scion has never been part of that problem. He's looked good on it, predictably. But they'll take Ezreal for now. We should note that Camille is a flex pick, but that is not a flex pick. Insta-lock on the Skarner for Beyond, taking it away from Spirit, our only Skarner player.
Yeah, he's got a cheeky little smile there. Afreeca getting a laugh out of that lock-in. Interesting to see. Skarner has not been running as rampant as you would have liked at the beginning of the season here, Papa Smithy, with how powerful it is, according to you, from the solo queue experience.
It's definitely a good pick, but actually making it work and competitive with all the coordination required and the Crystal Spires needing to be controlled has been difficult. Kuro bossed it up on the LeBlanc last time out, was hard done by not to get an MVP, but after 2 picks they reevaluate and say, we still have bouncy castles going on here with the Kalista, the guarantee of the ultimatum, and now the Galio, so we're bouncy castling at Gilios. Get ready.
It does look that way. So Galio going to be locked in here for the Afreeca Freecs. Corki, no surprise there for MVP, so double AD comp coming through.
A lot of good options here. Talia, Azir, both fine into the Galio, but Corki also is the old pick in the classic farm lane. Going for a farm lane and allowing first roam onto your Skarner makes Beyond's job a little bit more difficult already this early into the draft, so that's a little bit of a concern. We'll see if they can find some strong lanes to back up the poor little Skarner in the jungle.
You're reminded just how busted Corki gets late game. Attempt playing it against SKT, just critting people half to death.
I mean, you hit 3 items and you are a monster of damage. Early laning phase, very passive, but so's Galio. So Cull, Corki, very likely to be happening here in mid. Alistar, unfortunately, has been on the ban list. One of my favorite champions to play and watch, but very, very strong at the moment, providing true engage from the support role. Taking the Unsealed Spellbook and being creative is the Alistar. And I guess when we have a moment, we should give lip service to the fact that we do have
a lot of
TusiN.
supports.
TusiN is the guy who played the Camille support, so I guess the triple flex might still be on.
That's true. Could have that
If
one
you've
coming
played
through.
it in the LCK, I have to talk about it. And he did play it. He got a victory with it too.
Well, otherwise, still have, the Tom Kenshi, Alistar, Braum, and Shen all banned away. We have another support ban. This would play very much to both Max and TusiN's strengths because they like to go for those oddball ones, and it will be, a semi-support ban there with the Ornn.
Mostly support, especially after the Unstoppable and the ult cooldown reduction. So the support pool is, Taric is really leaping off the page as a power support. Shen for playmaking denied because he didn't want to have to deal with all of the knockups and a Shen. So do we see a priority onto the Taric? The answer is no. And they have to be taking the blind Poppy. I guess it could be a Poppy support.
That's true. We have seen that before as
and
well.
It's Max who finds every champion in the support role. I'm still waiting for some of his more creative supports. Where's the Lux support at? That's what I want to know.
Waiting for the Poppy Scion, and we just don't know which one goes top, which one goes bot.
Really strong against the hook shot is the W there, the steadfast presence from the Poppy. Ryze somehow comically has fallen this far down the draft, but this will be a top lane Ryze from Kiin. He just locks it in. It could be a top lane Galio. Oh my god, it could be a support guy. Winner's going crazy trying to work out where Afreeca Freecs
Anyone can go anywhere other than Kalista. She's going into the bottom lane.
Support?
Not like
Kalista
this.
Rakan was seen for the first time yesterday. So we'll firm on the positions now. It's going to be Camille jungle, clearly. Bit of a flex pick nature for Kuro and Kramer, who are currently holding on to the Galio and the Ryze, respectively. And last second change to Thresh.
Okay.
Oh, baby. Kalista
like
Thresh. Now, what this says is bot lane wants to be involved in the bounty castle, but also can just play a farm lane because you have Fate's Call and also the Lantern for safety. So you have a lot of options, a very flexible lane, and a TusiN favorite with his hook champion. Speaking of hook champions, though, oh, baby, we're playmaking on the side of MVP.
We're going to get
this game
another
just
Blitzcrank.
got really fun. All of a sudden, we're going to get the Blitzcrank, this time from Max, one of our resident Blitzcrank players, taking a lead from Ignar's playbook. Very big playmaking draft from MVP. Many different types of engage, and 2 AD carries do the brunt of the damage. That fast presence is going to be very useful against multiple abilities from Afreeca. Your issue is, though, when it comes to actually having the forward movement, having the lane presence in the early game, you'd give it to Afreeca Freecs a lot of room for Spirit to play make, and then first rotation from the Realm Warp, from the Galio Hero's Entrance, from the double teleport, Thresh leaving lane. There's so much playmaking that in a vacuum, if MVP could just farm up and then get going, they got a lot of options mid-game onwards, but the first 6 levels, honestly the first 12 to 15 minutes, look very painful for MVP, and they are not one of our strongest early game teams. So if they don't roll over here, if they actually get to a decent spot in the mid-game, there could be some delightful playmaking from Blitzcrank and friends.
So second Blitzcrank here coming through. Already had the service being paid to Mad Life when he was casting with us over here on the Korean side of things.
We could also be seeing a lot of spellbooks, Galio.
And I think that is actually going to happen. I think we're going to have so many people able to swap out the TP, so we can just have 5v5s break
That's
out
your
anywhere
problem. I get to just
around
watch.
the map. That's true. I'm going to be the one yelling about it, Papa Smithy, but at the same time, I'm not the one casting every day, so I can yell all I want. My voice be damned. It'll recover in time. So let's go ahead and get this potential fiesta underway. This one going to be absolutely nuts, and I'm ready to dive in. Afreeca Freecs versus MVP, game number 1.
협곡에 오신 환영합니다.
That guy really loves MVP.
You know, he is ready to go.
As you guys might imagine, because it is 5 p.m., we have, MVP and Afreeca. Afreeca is actually one of our more popular squads, around 4th, I'd say, in popularity behind KT, SKT, and Kingzone. Right now, we're still waiting for the arena to fill up. Even when we have the big teams, unfortunately, because 5 p.m. is so early to get off school and get through the traffic, we only really fill up for Game 2 usually of our first set, so
it is
a bit quiet here. It feels a little bit sleepy on a Thursday afternoon.
It is a weekday, Everyone's got to get their studies in before the holiday.
Yep. Sadly, no League of Legends during the holiday, so we can't have packed crowds of school kids ready to watch some League of Legends.
Sadly, no invasion from Max of the Blitzcrank.
It's a pretty strong level 1 from the side of Afreeca. Let's see if we see a super leash, because for now, Galio is entering mid lane, and you might wonder, okay, they go to Galio, why are they not going for the old standard of Q into the Raptor camp, AoE it down, and get the super leash going? Well, what it's kind of evolved in the meta is the super leash makes it predictable about where you're starting your path, and they want to add a bit of ambiguity about exactly what camp order that Afreeca Freecs is going to go on. So it's still a leash on red buff, but the timing is going to be a bit different. Spirit's actually walking in vision, I think, there. It was hard to tell. The toggle was late, but trying for a bit of ambiguity as confirmation on the bot. Key player is Kramer. It's KDA. It's pretty boss.
Yep.
Somehow 11.4 CS per minute is 3rd, by the way, because of our comical 70-minute games.
We've been through them. Max has now been through, Atlas, rather, has now been through one of the long haul games. 94 minutes still the standing record, though.
Didn't hear his review, though.
I don't know if that one will ever get broken.
Well, we got another 1,000 CS game from Bang, who now is 2nd and 3rd on the all-time rankings from the last month of play, so who knows? We're here in La La Land, where everything can happen. TusiN and Max, also a fun matchup. A lot of matchups here, but I'm interested in the champion matchups. We've got a lot of crazy stuff going on. Top lane Ryze, just a blind pick. Potential flex pick, they could have just had Galio clearing waves at top side, but then you lose full value out of the hero's entrance. They want to do a lot of playmaking with Camille, who, predictably, with strong lanes, is on the invade.
Yep, it's going to be taking the Spire here in the river at the moment, so that's going to allow Beyond the Note. Right where she's at, TusiN now looking for the hook. We'll go ahead and draw the flash away from Max already.
They, of course, saw the Spire be turned over, and I believe it may have been on a ward, but regardless, the Spire gave away positioning, so smart respect there from the Blitzcrank. A lot of threat range from the hook shot into flash, so smart of him to back off.
Hook shot there, Spirit trying to get the one onto Ian, but he's got the Valkyrie to take himself out of range. So keeps himself nice and safe. No stun to be had, no flash needing to be blown.
So Beyond, will he show us the way of the appropriate skill order? I want to say correct, but that's a bit presumptive. But I would say with all the buffs towards the E, that E into W is the skill max I'm the biggest fan of when it comes to Skarner. Captain Flowers we'll have to consult with, but I imagine he'll agree as well. Just for the amount of control there, even when it comes to clearing camps. E and the amount of extra damage it gives you on auto to monsters actually does match the wave. It's a bit more annoying because you have to click on minions rather than just press Q, but I think there is a lot of merit to going E into W, to largely be an initiator, and he has plenty of damage on his lineup once Corki and Ezreal get going. So we'll see what the build is. Traditionally in competitive play, Cinderhulk into Righteous Glory, very standard Skarner stuff, but who knows? There's a chance for craziness.
Beyond has shown us some in the past. I mean, pretty much everybody on MVP has played something a bit wacky, Beyond being known for the Amumu.
Amazingly, the most offensive, and by that I mean attack damage focused Skarner build we ever had was Ambition, of all people.
Yeah.
His Warrior Trinity Force Dream in 2016, helping Samsung Galaxy get past KT Rolster into the World Championships that year.
Still one of my favorite images is the Ambition Skarner.
Yep.
Nice
Not
trades
his
here for
favorite
Kiin.
laning phase ever for ADD.
Definitely not.
No value
down.
out of Steadfast Presence apart from the movement speed. Nothing to interrupt, but of course when the hook shot comes in, he'll get massive value, and he does have the ability to disengage the Hextech Ultimatum, very straightforward manner. It's ulting the Camille away. QMax seems to be a thing in Korea, guys, what I'm learning. Beyond also going 2 points into Q. I'm ready to do some learning. Teach me about Skarner, Beyond.
Well, Beyond now finding Spirit here in the river. Like they're just going to be going their separate ways. There's the Fracture out, but not going to be finding anything. This is slower than I was anticipating, honestly.
It'll burst into life. This is sort of game where
I hope so.
a lot of people will show up. Speaking of people showing up, we should talk about spellbooks. 2 on the side of Afreeca. TusiN definitely, when it comes to playing for lane, or as I say, ruining for lane, he seems to be very on the Unseal Spellbook train. Braum, now Thresh. He's very focused on cross-map playmaking, and I figure have been great with the cross-mapping, and they have a cross-map drop with the Ryze and the Galio, so it makes sense that he goes for it here. Kramer just being a support for TusiN more often than not. People can't forget his locket that he picked up on AD carry this season, understanding his role as TusiN was hard carrying.
Bit of an exchange here into the mid lane. Hook shot over the wall. Again, not finding the stun as Ian makes his way out. Still holds on to the summoner spells. Beyond just trailing a little bit further behind.
We don't like to talk about Top Poppy, but
yeah,
I guess it's only a situational thing, so it's a bit more quaint now.
It is a straight up 50% win rate.
3.1 KDA, doing all right.
Yeah, not too bad.
Legacy pick, but no longer one of the ultra standards.
You know, Top Poppy I'm okay with if we're talking about, 2016 SMEB. Top Poppy getting double kills, in a 1v2 scenario, stealing away Barons, that sort of thing.
How are you feeling about Spectre's Cow Rush ADD, Poppy? Not as excited?
Dance game.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's a hipster choice. We never see Poppy, so fun to see once in a while here, ADD pulling out the Poppy. It's going to be a farm lane for Kiin, though, which, if you think about it, it's almost the reverse of mid lane, right? Where Ryze getting a free lane against Poppy, and then you'd say that Corki's getting a free lane against Galio. So a lot of them going to be doing plentiful scaling. Kalista's always had quite a lot of trouble busting through Poppy, because Poppy just kind of gets in her face, and the Ren stacks aren't going to be enough with all her concurrent shields and amount of armor stacking. So as a primary threat to the Poppy, Kalista doesn't really fit there. So if she's able to tussle with the Kalista for a long time, maybe there's happy news for Afreeca, who will need Spirit and Kiin to pick up the damage slack in that scenario.
Well, very early focus on the Dragon here. Ocean Drake going to be going over to Afreeca.
Kiin on top lane is stoked about this.
Mana for days.
It's going to be a second Ocean as well. So if you're going to have 2 Oceans, first 2 spawns is definitely when you'd like to see it, and they're forcing it out early. So late laning phase here, or 15 to 20 minutes, maybe even the first grouping phase, is going to be a lot of sustain there for the laners of Afreeca.
And again, even with that Spectre's Cal, you can see Kiin dishing out the damage onto ADD.
Kuro is usually one of our tankier Galio players. If you remember, there was a time when double Dorans, triple Dorans was pretty common on the Galio, but when Doran's rings had the discrete stacking, and Kuro was the first player we saw in Korean competitive play to just ignore it and go straight tank and build not even 3 Doran's rings, the budget rod of ages, as I love to call it. So he's always been on the tankier side, but I'm sure just with the new Galio, he'll weave in some damage eventually. Seems like Leandri's is the core damage item we see from Galio.
Yeah. Otherwise, just go for the tankiness. But we have seen the Proto Belt. That added a little bit of damage going through, but just going to see that blue buff prepped here for Ian as he rotates over.
And so far, so good on the, kind of greedy scaling of having Skarner, Corki, and multiple losing lanes for Afreeca. We always say that while you look at the draft and say, well, a lot of options here for Afreeca. They won the draft. If the early game win conditions aren't hit, then MVP can be very powerful in the mid game with Skarner, Blitzcrank, Poppy. You could be displaced with no ability to cleanse or flash for a damn long time. They're able to hit all of those pick CC. Corki's happily scaling, 9 CS away from the Kalista.
He's going in. He's going to go ahead and pop the Impale down in onto Spirit. Lets a chunk come out. Goes golden. Gets knocked up. Beyond now down to about half HP. True Shot Barrage coming in. Chunk it out. Kuro, he goes low. Hook connects in right as TusiN gets grabbed over the wall by Max. Now he's going to be stuck. Might have to blow the flash, but no, the Fate's call is there from Kramer. Will drag him out. We finally get some action, but nobody dies.
Yeah, that's because all the stopwatches and flashes were up as we start there. If you take stock of what was used, Afreeca used the longer cooldowns. The Hero's Entrance is down. The Hextech Ultimatum is down. Kuro flashed as well, and Skarner has Unsealed Spellbook, so he will have his rotation available earlier. So the cost there more severe for the side of Afreeca. We're going to see the replay. That was super aggressive, but he didn't even have vision of the brush. Had no idea there were two people there, but usually to the aggressor, the spoils, who's ensuring on the W as he just wanted to have some presence in the vision line of MVP. No one dies. Fate's call, another long cooldown after the nurse is used. So all in all, with the invasion, MVP are ahead slightly.
Yeah, not bad investment there. Just the one flash for all of the summoners that they got. So good stuff here for MVP at the moment. Going to be up very slightly as far as the gold is concerned.
Don't clear the back line at level 9 anymore with double Dorans for Kuro. AP scaling, of course, much better than it used to be. Zeal first, so we might actually see the Hurricane Rush from Kramer this time out. It was always a situational thing. I think Pilot, actually, on Jin Air back in the day was one of the first to do this, just for wave control. It's going to be against Iceborne Gauntlet Rush, probably, so it's going to be a lot of low damage to champions, but high damage to minions and minion wave control for both these AD carries. Beyond rolling around QW, it's going classic Skarner. Not getting any value out of the E-buffs until much later in the game.
Let's see what Captain Flowers thinks about this.
Does a lot of damage in extended skirmishes. It should be worth mentioned if you have the Q. But the E, for such a strong pick ability, I'm a big fan of. But yes, we will have to defer to the captain. He's the man who knows the way on the Skarner. Usually, I did a lot of research. After we saw Spirit play with the Q-Max, I talked to a couple of LCK junglers. I did some research on what people are doing in other regions, and it was the EW that seemed to leap off the page, but not being preferred by Korean junglers from what we can see.
Kuro doing quite a bit of damage there to Ian. Spirit just not reacting in time to get over the wall with a hook shot to try to get the stun.
Ian already on the Trinity Force and cashed in the Cull, so in a very strong power spot 12 minutes into the game. Afreeca not been able to do any playmaking, and there is the Hurricane. It's a confirmation that Kramer is going to push lane while ostensibly, TusiN will have his roaming shoes on. Already teleport switched over for the side of Afreeca. 2 teleports and 1 on cooldown for Afreeca. 2 teleports for MVP. We can get outnumbered, and then you get the fun game, Achilles, of working out who's TPing when.
Can't wait. It's always the biggest challenge, you know, but
I really want to see, like, teleport into W flash and hook in midair, like, just the craziest entrance on the Thresh teleport. Do a lot of different geometry plays with that. And I trust in TusiN, resident MVP leader 4 weeks into the season.
I'll do my best to manage it, you know.
I believe in you. The moment I mentioned that, I saw you pick up an energy drink, so you need to really get your wits around you.
I'm just saying, if Piglet can't figure out what's happening when 2 TPs are cast at the same time, then, you know, I'll do my best.
Now I want to see a clip of like a challenges, or what if it's called a of a game that of Piglet's current team and 4 teleports onto a ward. That'd be great.
I think it's Clutch Gaming Academy.
Academy teams.
Yeah.
I said challenges. Academy team. I've been catching that. I believe he's still in Korea. I see him in Korean solo queue.
Yeah, I've seen him post on Instagram a little bit, and he's definitely still in Korea. So probably just waiting on some legal documentation.
That sounds like a thing. We're also talking about MVP. You know. 13 minutes into the game, still no threat. Happy to solo down. The Rift Herald is beyond. More damage to those camps going the Q route. And again, Afreeca have not punished. Afreeca have been a bit sleepy on this early game. Haven't been able to line up their abilities as they wanted to. The first round of long cooldowns for this bouncy castle. We'll kind of put a pin into as Spirit might turn onto Beyond here.
We'll be looking for it. Beyond's just going to go ahead and flash away. Keeps himself safe, but The flash comes back up. Now it's going to be down. Won't have that for Impale engages quite some time. So
maybe we'll just
going to
farm
be
more.
sitting back and farming.
Kiin's read this game very well. He's like, well, I'm going to build a Rod of Ages. Don't need to go for a second Abyssal Mask, and I might as well be a big damage threat. He's been on the losing end of matchups quite a lot recently, and that doesn't mean in terms of poor performance, but just been taking those matchups where you have to scale and haven't been able to be his aggressive self. Ever since he was on Ever 8 Winners, we were struck by how much he was able to punish and his confidence on the aggressive side of the matchup. But he's gotten and developed a lot. So we have the defensive side as well. Speaking of defensive side, MVP roaming down. They want to counter Ocean Drake. No Ocean Drake advantage for either team.
Well, one of them will have it since we have a third Ocean Drake spawning next.
Life's a beach.
So somebody will take the lead in Ocean Drakes 20.5 minutes into the game.
We're still in the early game, as we've come to learn about LCK.
Yeah. This is the infant stage.
There could be 60 more minutes. Easily. There could be 80 more minutes.
There could. It could go forever. Maybe it just never ends.
And if we go 80 minutes, I will say that I think that MVP will outstrip in terms of damage, because Corki will take over the game, and even a full Ryze
Coming through,
build.
they get the pop-up there onto the Kalista as Kramer goes low, but Spirit walks in, throws down the ultimatum, but Max goes golden. As he casts it, it looks like he keeps himself safe. Justice Punch comes in, he gets popped up, and Kuro will be finding the first hit. Now flashes in, gets the double taunt. MaHa going low, but has the stopwatch to try to keep himself alive as Kuro tries to get him, but cannot finish him off. And in the meantime, it's going to be Spirit going down as Ian arrives in with the TP, and he's got quite a bit of damage with that Triforce. The Corki, not sure why we're looking at top lane. We go back to the bottom. Bossbomb comes in, he flashes forward and takes out Kramer. Ian with the double kill, 2-1 MVP on the board.
So much action, the Observer lost track. He was baited in by 15 minutes of passivity. The Rift Herald goes down bot lane as well. Ian had no threat on him as a Trinity Force Corki, and predictably punished the Afreeca Freecs. First turret of the game, big gold lead, and here comes some TPs.
Double TPs, Beyond and Ian and MaHa, all three of them low. Kuro gets the taunt in onto one, Beyond getting junked out, stopwatch there for Ian. Trying to finish him off, another TP, throw them all into the bottom lane, says Afreeca Freecs as they try to get the kills. Kiin arrives, gets the lockdown, 2 more kills over to Afreeca. They'll come out on top in that regard for the moment here as the Realm Warp comes in, but they can't quite catch them. So 3-2, but still going to be down in gold with that first brick going over to MVP.
Man, that really did explode into life. Extra TPs on the end. Ryze was the damage they didn't have on the first 2 TPs. This seemed like a long time ago that we started the fight with a hook, baited in. Notice here that the Hextech ultimate is actually cancelled by the stopwatch. That seems unfortunate for how long the cooldown is. Didn't really matter. Still got the kill onto Max. Beyond comes in and you think, okay, is it over? Just a 1-0. But Beyond stays in the fight with his Q-Max, does decent damage. First ult gets the Camille. So Camille and Blitzcrank are down. For those of you keeping track, fights never end on this meta. Ian goes aggressive, gets the kill onto Ian. They back away for a second. Teleports came in, as we know, afterwards. Still, overall, Afreeca trade down.
Yep. Both of the last guys that were in the bottom lane went back to base. The other 2 TP'd in while Kramer was still respawning. And then TusiN and Kuro came back in with their own TPs. That was a bit of a nutty fight all over the place. But at the end of the day, we're actually going to be even on gold as that turret gets traded out into the bottom lane. So bot lane completely wide open for either side, which is why you're going to see the rotations of MaHa and Max, Kramer, and TusiN up towards the top side of the map.
And you remember that about 800,000 flashes were used in the last fight. Max realized that and goes flash. He's ready to go. On the Turbo Blitzcrank, boots of mobility, Ghost, and Flash. He realized this is the time to get those God hands on, pushing up around the top side. But Galio's ult is back up. They have to respect here. Afreeca have a lot of control. Top side, so MVP have to be a bit more safe on their approach to take the second turret of the game.
Both of them cheating their way up to that north side of the river, but we'll just see the recall coming through here for the Camille. And Kuro's got to clear out the wave. In the meantime, Max and MaHa just farming up all nice like.
And that's
a bit of a discrepancy there from MaHa.
Not even mentioning Ian, who is bossing it with almost an Infinity Edge ready to go. He's going for the, if I get a lucky crit, you're dead build. Not picking up the Zeal item second. Usually Rapid Fire Cannon, the big favorite.
Yeah.
For a Corki.
You know, I get the Corkis in my games in solo queue, and they're finishing their Triforce in about 19 minutes. He's almost got 2 items done.
Well, he got 2 kills bot lane and a Cole cashed in, so he's blinging. We've got no Gangplank in this game, so the backup Gangplank has been the Corki. Looking very, very powerful. And maybe the difference, because we've learned from SKT's multiple attempts to try to run the Galio that no one's tanky
Oh, TusiN's
Oh, no,
going
they
in
get
onto that
Corki.
one. Gets the play in the box down, but won't get the connection. But now Spirit arriving, gets the hook shot in, looks for the stun, but can't find it. Pale comes down, they drag him out. Ultimatum tries to keep himself alive, but it's not going to happen as MaHa finds the kill. MVP starting to run away with the game as 2 kills go over to the Ezreal.
Yeah, it's just too easy for MVP. Spirit was caught all alone. I think his flash only came off cooldown after the end of all of this. Hextech Ultimatum wasted another time. Kiin pushes in mid, but he was the only person in the game that couldn't make it to the 5v5 in top side. Realmwart wasn't going to get him there. The teleport was on cooldown. Ends up being 2 free kills for MVP.
Really big disconnect, you would have to say, here on the side of the Afreeca Freecs. TusiN goes in and misses the box. They don't have the slowdown onto the Skarner. They still fully commit.
That's
but
why I assumed at
they
the
just
start
get
of this
bodied.
that TusiN was going to
Just
disengage
disengage.
this. They did not need to go for a fight, but they decided fight now, fight now. They can't even have 5 members there, so it's never going to go great.
Yeah.
There's no value at all from the ultimate there from Kuro. Like I mentioned, you're not tanky as Galio compared to old Galio builds. MVP now have a gold lead to cement what has felt like a pressure lead. They've outplayed Afreeca in a couple of consistent skirmishes. And Afreeca really need to lock back and lock and load for their next use of their wombo combo, the bouncy castle as we call it, because so far they've been pretty off when it comes to coordination.
I think Spirit's going to have to, maybe finish the Triforce and then just go into tankiness, because he jumps into the back line. Ian and MaHa will rip him apart. There's enough CC.
There's an argument to go Guardian Angel, and if he kills one of MaHa or Ian, his job is probably done.
Sure, that would also make sense.
At the end of the day, he really needs to be isolating out one of Ian and MaHa, but the reliability there with Skarner's ability to just ult him out of the ultimatum, also Poppy able to ult him out of the ultimatum.
Yeah.
Gonna probably have to hold on to Hextech Ultimatum to dodge an ability rather than necessarily just lead with the fight.
I mean, depending on how the fight breaks out, even if he gets the jump onto somebody in the back line, the Blitzcrank can just pull him out of his own ultimatum, which is super feels bad, but
The first kind of answer we saw was the Alistair and Gragas, back last year, but now a lot of different champions in the meta that can answer the ultimatum. Jungle Camille's been certainly up and down, as we found out in the LCK. ADD not available to rotate. Another strong map play from Afreeca. At least Afreeca compared to KT with a similar draft yesterday are playing aggressive. They have the right mindset to pull off this comp, but the execution has let them down, and MVP are not a free win after first going decent in their series against KSV. They looked at least competitive in one of the games there, if not for a poor Baron call, then beating SKT. This is MVP's strongest point in many weeks. See if they're going to be baited, though, as it's a gank brush for sure on top side.
they're really looking for it off. That true shot barrage just clipped through the brush. They would have known this was coming. Fates call in. Flay down in onto Max. He will die. He knows this, just pops the silence and tries to keep everybody nice and contained away from the Ezreal, so he'll give up his life so MaHa can escape. But this is the aggressiveness that you were talking about that Afreeca really needs to show, but they also just need to know, when to abort the mission.
And it's turning straight onto Baron. Of course, they have the Kalista Ren. Ryze pushing the bot
They're taking
side.
way too much damage.
Yeah, there's no tank there. TusiN himself only has
Moby
the Eye
boots.
of the Watcher, so he doesn't have that much tankiness just yet. Kindle
Yep.
Gem on top of it. Still, I like the thought, because a quick Baron is certainly one of their ways to accelerate this game, and they drafted for this point in the game. 15 to 30 minutes. Basically level 6 until 3 items are complete on the carries of MVP. Afreeca should win basically every scenario with the draft that they have. We have to evaluate things like Unsealed Spellbook, other movements in the meta that makes the reliability of the bouncy castle. That's kind of a established strategy now. We've already seen some teams disengage very smartly away from these Galio knock-up comps. And there's no guarantee that Afreeca will be able to pull off the next attempt at an engage.
Well, 4-4, separated now by just 100 gold. MVP down a turret, so still going to be in a good spot.
But up a Ocean Drake.
That's true. They have so much more sustain out
Good
of
news,
combat.
Infernal coming next, so that might be a fight point in about 4 minutes' time. MVP trying to counter any of the vision around Baron. Of course, they got the memo when Afreeca had already started it a moment ago. Control over your red side jungle, always the gold standard, because if you have control wards, you don't have to face check and be picked by basically both teams having insane pick CC in the scenario where you're face checking for vision. The Andre's complete for Kuro. Again, always have to reevaluate. There's no Merc Treads here. There's one defensive item. He does have decent tankiness when his W is up, but otherwise very squishy as a melee mage. once again, requires the hero's entrance to be on point to get maximum value out of the pick.
See the QSS there for Kramer. Be keeping himself safe from the Impale as best as possible, but even if he gets away from that, there's still plenty of other CC that MVP have available to them to ensure that he stays locked into the fight.
I'm a big fan of Unsealed Spellbook Kalista against non-suppression comps because you can just change to cleanse and you don't have to go for QSS third. Always been very common to see. Play the Ruin King Hurricane into situational, but QSS was always the big pick. If you have the ability to just go cleanse, you can of course go Bloodthirst and have double lifesteal and hop around a fight, but no such flexibility against the Skarner. Go for that QSS. Still in a decent position here. Void Staff also complete on Kiin. He's not there, his
That's
hook.
going to be the hook straight in onto TusiN, but the Fate's Call will drag him back out, make sure that he's safe. MVP draw that ultimate. You can see MaHa, he is chunking out the members of the Afreeca Freecs, and right now MVP, they're thinking about the Baron themselves. They zip their way over. They're in division, they know this, but they don't give a damn.
Kramer can teleport in, remember, because he has the spellbook.
Rotating his way in, he's into the mid lane at the
Here
moment.
comes Kiin.
He's coming through from Kramer, I do believe. Hook comes down, tries to draw him out of the pit. No, it's going to be taken away. A Spirit finds the kill. The smite comes down. The Baron goes over to the side of Afreeca. MVP yet again going in, electing to have a 50-50 Baron attempt, and it costs them massively. 2 members currently dead. They lose the Baron, and Afreeca suddenly back in control.
Classic MVP Baron. They trusted ADD to be able to eject. We saw Thresh mid-air being punted out of existence, but they were not able to punt away Spirit. Didn't catch if he used the ultimatum to get away from that, but regardless, that was the one that was able to confirm the kill onto the Baron, and Baron was the objective clearly for Afreeca with a draft like this, and gifted, you'd have to say, by MVP.
Is handed over, tied up nicely with a bow. 2 turrets immediately going down, now looking for a third here in the top lane as Afreeca just goes ahead and explodes forward with a massive gold lead off the backside of that Baron. We were 100 gold apart.
So let's watch the replay here. They're trusting Poppy to disengage. TusiN, notice, gets knocked away. Spirit gets interrupted, actually, and then is able to ultimatum in. Wow. So I believe, actually, the rocket punch there, the E there from the Blitzcrank knocked him up instead of him being fully disengaged. If I read the Poppy AoE on the ultimate correctly, regardless, the knockups didn't work the way that MVP wanted. The Baron is stolen. And from there, so much momentum. Like you say, an explosion in the gold lead. And the objective Afreeca needed with this comp to make their pushing actually stick.
Well, it certainly has been a explosive early game, still early game, we have to say. But yeah, the action certainly has vamped up after those first 15 or so odd minutes.
MVP will wish that they didn't make such a bold claim, because they were in such a good place scaling-wise that a Baron being stolen was kind of the only way Afreeca could accelerate the game. If not, we would have had a farm phase here, so I'm sure some people are happy to see a burst of excitement, but when it came to MVP's side, they were in a better scenario than I could have ever imagined with a draft like this. The early game had gone so much better than I predicted because Afreeca had so many options in that ultra early game, but this is the MVP way. They live by the sword, die by the sword, around Baron in particular. This time, they died.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I can't even count how many times MVP has felt this feeling, because it has just happened over and over again. Not even just in this season, but in seasons past since they joined the league in 2016.
And look, an MVP Baron was something I talk about quite often. People think, oh, just flame an MVP, but they've actually in interviews said, this is the way we want to play.
Yeah.
We trust in the smite. They love to take the risks, but sometimes the risks are used against you.
Oh, ADD trying to get the pop out there, but oh no, that's going to be the hook shot. Spirit drags himself in, keeps himself inside of the ultimatum, and then gets that final hit in onto ADD. Beyond coming forward, does get the impale, but the Hero's Entrance comes through, pops him up, and Spirit makes it out alive. Now 2 more members dead on the side of MVP. 8-4, massive gold lead bubbling up here for Afreeca Freecs. They're going to be looking to finish off MVP here in game 1 as they're knocking down the inhibitors.
That's a huge outplay by Spirit, using the hook shot to dodge the ultimate from Poppy and getting the stun and living out of all of it. Insane stuff. Turn around onto Beyond and ADD. In the meantime, like you noted, they took a free turret and a free inhibitor on the bot side. They continue to push with Baron. Not enough wave clear here for MVP, even with Ian and MaHa alive.
Ian is getting ripped apart.
There's Baron buff power plays, and there's this Baron buff power plays. In the course of the Baron, they've racked up a 10,000 gold lead.
There was basically no gold lead before that Baron happened.
It's plus 10,000. Plus 10,000.
Yeah.
Insane.
nuts. Hook just come down onto Max, but they'll just go ahead and chunk him out. Don't even have to ride it forward to try to finish him off. Afreeca Freecs going to be on a bit of a retreat here, but maybe looking to turn things around as a play in the box. Come down here onto ADD, who is just not tanky enough. Pops the stopwatch to try to keep himself alive. Hook comes in onto Kiin, but he's got a stopwatch of his own. Max now has to flash away. Ian has been able to finish off one, but they're trading a 1 for 2. As Afreeca looks to go ahead and finish this off. Spirit goes forward, throws down the ultimatum. Will pay for that one with his life. A bit silly here on the Camille, it would seem. But Afreeca Freecs have taken all 3 inhibitors. They will go ahead and go back and spend this massive amount of gold that they have accrued.
5 minutes of hell for MVP, but 5 minutes of ecstasy for the Afreeca Freecs. Basically deciding the game off of 1 Baron steal. MVP's VOD review is going to be very clear because this was a very improved performance by MVP before the Baron call. Even the Baron call, there's validity to it. You can always turn off it, but that's not the MVP way. They love to rush it down and put faith in the smite. ADD so close to just guaranteeing the smite by being able to punt away with the Poppy ultimate. Spirit, it didn't happen, and now the game is basically there to be won by Afreeca.
Then you have to wonder how this is going to affect MVP, because we keep saying this is their play style, but they were doing so well as a 10th place team in the league going up against the Afreeca Freecs, who are on an 8-game winning streak. To start off this series doing really well, and then to just toss it all away at the Baron, how is that going to affect them going into game 2?
In the last 3 sets, they should have beaten KSV. It was even more of an MVP Baron. They didn't even look for an interrupt and just got outsmited in that game. In this game, it was almost pinpoint play by them to disengage, but the risk was used against them. So almost beating KSV and Afreeca, admittedly in a single game, but at least being in control against those teams is so much of an improvement on a team that was getting slammed by Kongdu Monster, Jin Air. They definitely had a very poor start to the season. Their improvement since that KSV series has been very impressive. They no longer look like relegation fodder. So while the game score won't show it, MVP are on the up.
Well, MVP having one of the harder comps to defend this triple super creep waves with. Corki can chunk them out, but the Ezreal not going to be doing as heavy of damage to the waves as much as you would like to have a Sivir here in this composition. Fortunately for us, there is no Sivir in this composition, which means that Afreeca very likely to finish this one off soon. They will be cutting back, however, so maybe not quite at the moment. There's 40 seconds left on that Baron. Might just be waiting for that to respawn before they go for the end.
A lot of picks you see from MVP as well. Double Righteous Glory on Poppy and Skarner. Blitzcrank with Ghosts. So smartly, Afreeca's like, well, no, we can't really end the game right now. Means the game will extend a little bit. Need to get their minion waves in order. Kiin casually has a 5,000 gold lead and almost Flame Horizon onto the Poppy, largely because Poppy's been drawn away.
He's 1 creep away right now.
Yep.
Really does have it. It's the MVP trying to push forward, clear out some of this enemy vision, but getting close to that Baron is going to prove it rather difficult, especially with all of the waves still pushing into the base. Kind of just have to let that one go. As much as they would love to be there for that 50-50.
Nope, it's 100 here for the side of Afreeca. Not even an attempt in the ult by MaHa, who I wonder if we'll see Pilot in game 2. Was involved in that final victory against SKT, but hasn't really been about MaHa and Max this game. Very much about the macro core made onto Baron. Second Zeal item. The Ian is massively strong, but Afreeca will look to just basically ignore him and try to end the game around him or get the opportunistic pick from Spirit. Derek's Gage finished on the Camille in order to guarantee that dive. It's amazing because we've had 33 minutes of this game. About 28 minutes of it's been plotting and then 5 minutes of just the most action and teleport you could ever imagine.
Yeah, things got a bit crazy there for a little while, but
this is the new norm, by the way.
now it's just going to be the nice little slowdown as everyone's in the base. But Baron buff in hand, Super Creep still pushing forward. You can see this bot in him coming back up, but will be taken immediately, so the Super Creep's going to be respawned into this side of the map. Kramer trying to fire away, but has to pay respect here to Max.
Flash is available to potentially flash over the Poppy ultimate.
Oh, one of those Nexus turrets almost taken here as Kiin is getting chased down as the Zone used to keep himself alive with the Realm Warp, so just zips his way up the lane. Hook comes out from Max, doesn't find anything, nor does TusiN.
One of the next stars dies to incidental damage from the minions, so still going to be turret defense here for MVP.
Saw how long they lasted in the game yesterday. with SK Telecom versus BBQ.
Back in from the Ryze this time.
Maybe rejoining Spirit, finishing off that final inhibitor yet again.
Kiin is a monster of damage. In case you guys haven't been inspecting the build with all that gold lead, the 5,000 gold lead.
Yep.
He is basically full build Ryze, QSS in the slot of a more desirable item like the Death Cap, but otherwise very, very powerful.
My question is he going to finish this Flame Horizon before the game's over?
Looking like no. There is a lot of minions in the base for MVP to clear, and at some point Afreeca will back away. They don't really have someone other than Spirit to dive in and set up the hero's entrance, and flashes are up for all 5 members of MVP. So the reliability of a play there, especially with the ability to disengage the Hextech ultimatum so easily, is quite low. And a lot of games end up just slowing down around this point. I'm sure the Korean casters are telling war stories of yesterday.
Oh, here we go. Super Creep's pushing forward. Still the Baron buff going to be there. As that Impale comes down, they drag him into the back line. Look at the chunk down Spirit. He pops the ultimatum yet again. Will fall. This is maybe the moment here for MVP to try to hold out some hope. ADD and Beyond both going low. Beyond will get picked off as Kiin finds the kill. The Nexus under fire. MVP desperately trying to hold on to their hopes. Fate's Call gets dragged out. They can toss him straight back in if they want. TusiN goes for the hook, doesn't find it, but they're onto the Nexus. Will get chunked down. It will get destroyed. 35.5 minutes in. And Afreeca Freecs will go ahead and beat MVP here in game number 1, but it was certainly closer than we might have been anticipating.
Yeah, definitely not one you smile about. No coach is going to burst through the door and
We did
high-five
it!
any players, because this was one that MVP on a different day would have realistically taken. So a lot to talk about here as Zephyr and troops come in, talk with their charges. Some surprising passivity from Afreeca Freecs in the early game, reminiscent of KT Rolster mismanaging their Galio draft in game 1. So blue side Galios have certainly been letting down their team a little bit. They still were able to stick the landing, but you saw some of the hand gestures there from the coaching staff. Not too impressed. Well, Afreeca closed it out, whereas MVP, very impressed with their ability to once again get on top of things. They made one big roll of the dice. Unfortunately, it was around the Baron and ended up in their demise. That's the MVP way. It's not something their coaches have tried to coach out. We've talked about it for many, many seasons now. But live by the sword, die by the sword. They'll have to reevaluate for game 2.
I think it's, getting that point where they kind of need to accept not going for the 50-50. If somebody out there wants to make MVP a flowchart of what to do when approaching Baron, that would be great. Is anyone dead on the other team? Then go for Baron.
But you
No,
think
then
about
probably
it.
back away.
Why do you do that? If you think pound for pound, you don't have better players and you need to go for risks, you go for risks. And they seem to price themselves into these rolls of the dice. And when they don't work out, often they lose.
Well, at least know when to back away, I suppose. Would be a nice thing there for MVP, but we'll see if they can bring it back, tie up the score, make it a 1-1 when we come back from the break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few.